We're not headed back to another round of elections.
Depends which side of your political map you're on.
Speaking of cost, Israel's ranked one of the most expensive countries on earth, and one of the biggest culprits is housing. In fact, housing prices have multiplied in the last decade, and now a wave of refugees is heading from Ukraine to Israel, which means that finding a place for them to live is not going to be easy either. Well, our reporter Ariel Levin-Waldman has the story.
For Israel, the war in Ukraine presents a pressing problem. Where will a flood of refugees go? They are fleeing in the tens of thousands.
Behind me is about 100 refugees who are coming, Ukrainian refugees who are coming from different parts of Ukraine. They met our teams at the border of Moldova. They received assistance in Kishinev, and now we brought them by bus to Romania to the airport. We're flying them to Israel right now.
The only thing that I want is go to Israel and go to sleep. That's it. I don't want anything more. Just go to Israel, have my silence in my head, don't hear anything, no news, nothing, just go to sleep.
For Israel, the problem is a matter of scale. The country is already in a housing crisis, and land is at a premium.
There's only one Israel. There's very little land, and within this little land, almost 93% of Israel is owned by the government. So we have about 7-8% of private lands where people can live.
How many Ukrainian refugees will be temporary and how many permanent? At least 6,000 have formally immigrated. And what will happen in a housing market that has seen prices rise by 160% in the last decade alone?
So we have very little land, and we have a lot of people, we have an increase in the population, a constant increase in the population. And we have, of course, the Aliyah factor, people that are immigrants that are making Aliyah, immigration, from other countries to Israel. So we have a lot of people wanting to live in this tiny piece of land.
Some estimates suggest that more than 50,000 Ukrainian refugees will arrive in Israel. Enough that real estate firms are demanding the government intervene to ensure that those planning on staying can afford to.
You have to facilitate the housing process and the benefits that you're giving for a lien, such as, for example, a discount on a first purchase. To whoever will accept the conditions of, for example, staying here for the amount of 7 years.
The argument extends to all of Israel's immigrants. The government woos them with the promise of a Jewish home, but on arrival they receive a stipend of a few $100s a month to get started, while rents have spiked by 50% just during the pandemic. Now that Israel plans to absorb immigrants en masse, these issues remain pressing.
All right, we're out for a quick break, but don't worry.